Jace stumbled off the transport ramp, tripping over his own boots as if gravity itself had decided to mock him today. The bustling spaceport of Nova Haven sprawled around him like a carnival for aliens, humans, and things that defied both logic and common sense. Hovercarts zipped by, carrying glowing crates of unidentifiable substances, while floating drones buzzed overhead, occasionally letting out squeaky protest sounds when someone bumped them. He squinted through the neon haze, trying to look like he belonged and failing spectacularly. "Okay, deep breath," he muttered to himself, narrowly avoiding a collision with a six-legged merchant juggling stacks of translucent orbs. One misstep later, he bumped into her. Lysara spun, ears flaring like twin radar dishes, eyes flashing a sharp, luminescent green. She was almost human if you ignored the long, elegant ears, the faintly glowing skin, and the way her eyes seemed to flicker like starlight whenever she blinked. She looked at him with a mixture of disbelief, and what he quickly realized was fury. I'm so sorry," Jace said, trying to sweep up the trail of neon fruit that had somehow ended up on her boots. In the process, he tripped again, arms flailing, and accidentally triggered his portable scanner, which beeped frantically at her like a panicked mosquito. Lysara recoiled, twitching her ears in irritation. "You do realize what you just—" she began, but her words were cut off when the scanner, misinterpreting her physiology, pinged a sudden alert. Conception confirmed. Jace froze mid-apology, mouth hanging open like a fish in zero gravity. "Wait, what? That can't be." "Yes, that can be," Lysara said, her voice low, precise, and deadly. Her ears twitched and quivered in ways that made him instinctively back away. "On our first encounter, and you've already—" she gestured vaguely, a glitter of glowing energy around her palms as her biology protested the human mistake. I swear it was an accident," Jace stammered. "Honestly. I barely know how to operate this scanner without it exploding, and now you're glowing like a high-end hololamp." He flailed toward a hovering drone, hoping it might somehow absorb some of the awkward tension. It did not. Lysara's ears twitched again, sharp and pointed, and the glow around her dimmed into a simmering aura of barely contained fury. "Accident or not," she said, "there are consequences for this, human. Cultural, biological, and—" her eyes flicked to the scanner, and she added in an undertone that dripped venomous sarcasm, "clearly interstellar common sense." Jace held up his hands, palms glowing faintly from the scanner's residual energy. "Look, I can explain. Sort of, maybe. Honestly, can we start with coffee first?" Lysara's glare could have warped a small moon. Jace took a step back, tripped on a stray magnetic rail, and landed in a heap of what might have been synthetic fruit or some alien-bred product. It squished under his weight with an unpleasant squelch. "I still meant no harm?" he asked weakly. "You humans are delightfully reckless," Lysara said, her tone heavy with disbelief and a faint undercurrent of amusement. She twitched her ears in that way again, which Jace interpreted as the alien version of an eye roll. He guessed wrong. Before he could apologize further, a small hovercar zoomed past, narrowly clipping his shoulder. He yelped and grabbed at Lysara for balance, which, predictably, triggered another small pulse from the scanner. Another glow, a reminder of the very inconvenient miracle now brewing within her. Jace froze. I don't know what else to do." He said, "Do you need me to, leave? Step aside, perform a ceremonial dance? I can try." He spread his arms helplessly, nearly hitting a merchant selling levitating pastries, who screeched and flew backward like he'd been shot from a cannon. Lysara sighed, ears drooping slightly, which Jace read, incorrectly as usual as a sign of partial forgiveness. "You are insufferable," she muttered, shaking her head, "but also alarmingly human in your incompetence." "And you're intimidatingly long-eared," Jace said brightly, trying to lighten the mood. "Seriously, those ears are amazing. I mean, if you ever want to moonlight as a satellite receiver, I know a guy." He laughed nervously at his own joke. Her glare sharpened again, ears twitching like twin warning sirens. "Focus," she said. "You have caused an interstellar incident and laughter will not fix it. I mean, can we at least get ice cream first?" Jace suggested because apparently humans defaulted to dessert in every crisis. "You are hopeless," Lysara said, and for a fraction of a second her glow softened. Maybe it was amusement, maybe it was resignation. Jace wasn't sure, but he took it as a sign. He scrambled to his feet, brushing neon fruit off his jacket, and followed her into the chaos of the spaceport. Somewhere in the swirling crowd, he realized the adventure, and the problem was only beginning. Hovercars, angry merchants, Blinking scanners and Lysara's twitching ears created a perfect storm of chaos as they navigated the corridor that would take them toward the city's heart. Every step made him more acutely aware of just how alien the universe could be. He had thought space travel was dangerous, but apparently the real peril lay in accidentally impregnating long-eared aliens and hoping they didn't vaporize you on sight. "Next time," he muttered, eyes fixed on the glowing path ahead, "I'm sticking to cats and holograms." Lysara's ears twitched sharply. "You will wish you had." And Jace, entirely unconvinced of his survival odds, followed her into the unknown, already realizing that cosmic humor had a very sharp, very glowing edge. Jace followed Lysara off the crowded streets of Nova Haven and into the skyway that led toward her home district. Every step was an exercise in careful coordination. Magnetic rails zipped past, levitating platforms hummed with a faint electric scent, and holographic signs flashed in dozens of alien languages, some of which seemed to mutter directly at him. Lysara walked with perfect grace, her long ears swiveling like sentient antennae, picking up every nuance of sound he couldn't even hear. He felt like a clumsy puppy trying to follow a spacefaring gazelle. "So," Jace said, trying to sound casual while accidentally kicking a loose grav tile, "how bad is this whole, accidental baby situation? Are we talking minor interstellar inconvenience or full-blown galactic scandal?" Lysara shot him a look that could have melted starship hulls. Her ears twitched sharply, and a faint pulse of glowing energy ran along her temples. "You have no concept of consequence, human," she said. "This is a matter of biology honor, and, if we are being honest, political embarrassment for my family line. You have triggered what we call the unexpected propagation event." Jace tried not to panic. "Unexpected propagation event, got it. That sounds serious, like do I need a space lawyer or a lightspeed helmet serious?" She tilted her head, and her ears flicked in a motion that suggested both confusion and amusement. "You may need both, and possibly a new pair of legs should you continue to stumble through my society's rituals." Jace grinned weakly. "Noted. I'll watch my step." He realized immediately that phrase had been catastrophic when his foot slid on a strip of anti-gravity moss, sending him drifting into a stack of levitating crates. One of them wobbled dangerously, and Lysara's ears twitched in irritation. "I swear I meant no harm," he said as he righted himself, muttering under his breath that anti-gravity moss should be illegal. They arrived at a floating lift that would take them to her home city, a network of translucent towers that shimmered like liquid crystal. As the lift rose, Lysara began explaining the gravity of the situation, her voice a calm undertone to the lift's gentle hum. "In our culture, gestation is both ceremonial and observed," she said. "There are devices, called conduits of stability, that regulate early embryo development, ensuring that both parent and child survive initial propagation phases." Jace tilted his head, trying to parse the technical jargon. "So basically, what? You have like a high-tech pregnancy incubator and I'm supposed to help?" "Yes," she said, flicking her ears, "and no. You are to observe, contribute nothing until instructed, and refrain from laughing, panicking, or spilling anything that glows." "Refrain from laughing? That's a tragedy," Jace muttered, and immediately banged his head on the lift console. Lysara's ears twitched sharply, and she emitted a low hum that Jace guessed was her version of a sigh. The lift doors opened to reveal a city that floated above the crystalline forest of Urindor. Walkways glowed underfoot, streams of liquid light flowed like rivers, and hovering platforms carried citizens who moved with a rhythmic grace. Jace tried to absorb the grandeur, but tripped over the edge of the lift and nearly collided with a hovering courier. "Focus," Lysara said, ears flicking like twin sentinels. "The first phase is the orientation ceremony. You will learn the rules, the rituals, and how not to accidentally cause another reproductive anomaly." The orientation ceremony was a bewildering spectacle. Jace was handed a glowing sash that vibrated faintly against his chest, while Lysara performed a series of gestures that caused ribbons of light to swirl around her, subtly adjusting his own sash as well. At one point, a small holographic creature darted across the floor and lodged itself in his hair. He panicked, flailing, and the creature giggled in a high-pitched electronic tone. Lysara's ears twitched in alarm, and she smacked him gently on the shoulder. "Control yourself, human." "I'm trying," he shouted, flicking the holographic imp into a nearby gravity well. "It's like every alien thing has it out for me." "It is not personal," Lysara said, tone perfectly calm, though her ears quivered. It is tradition, and survival mostly tradition. Despite the chaos, the ritual began to teach Jace about Urindorian reproductive science. Tiny drones hovered around Lysara, scanning and adjusting her vital signs in sync with the embryo's accelerated growth cycle. The air shimmered with quantum stabilizers, and he could feel the subtle pulse of bioenergy around her, like a heartbeat stretched across wavelengths he couldn't comprehend. Jace was fascinated, though he kept his fascination to a quiet, muttered commentary. Okay, so if I had one of these back on Earth, I could probably get my cat to walk on the ceiling or explode. Lysara's ears twitched sharply. Do not joke. I'm joking, Jace asked innocently, earning a glare that could have rendered a spaceship inert. Fine, no more jokes. Well, maybe just one. The orientation ceremony ended with Lysara demonstrating how to operate the conduit of stability. Jace, of course, managed to activate it at maximum output by accidentally pressing the wrong panel, sending a pulse of neon energy into the ceiling. The ceiling shimmered like liquid glass, then quickly settled. Lysara's ears twitched violently, and she muttered something in her language that Jace assumed was a curse, though it sounded suspiciously like, "You better not do that again." You see, she said, calming slightly, your interference could have catastrophic results, or hilarious ones, mostly catastrophic. I'll try not to break anything else, he said, though he immediately stepped on a levitating tile and went sliding across the ceremonial chamber, knocking over a holographic projection of what looked like a giant space turtle. Human, Lysara said, ears flicking in irritation, you are already a walking crisis, and yet somehow bearable. Jace gave a weak thumbs up. Thanks, I think. She shook her head, the glow around her dimming slightly. This is only the beginning. If you survive the next phases without annihilating the city, we may yet navigate the intricacies of interspecies reproduction without disaster. Jace gulped, and if I do... Her ears twitched sharply, like radar ready to fire. Then you will make a very memorable warning for future humans. As the twin suns set behind the floating towers, casting long iridescent shadows across the city, Jace realized that he had just been hired, unwillingly, for the most absurd and dangerous interstellar babysitting job in existence. And somehow, he was also falling for the very long-eared alien who had every reason to vaporize him on sight. Every glowing step forward seemed to hum with potential disaster, and if he was honest, a tiny spark of excitement he couldn't quite name. Jace blinked at the glowing control panel, trying not to panic as holographic projections of Lysara's accelerating embryo danced across the room like tiny constellations. He had managed, miraculously, to survive the orientation ceremony, the ritual of stability, and the inadvertent hovercart disaster in the mid-city plaza, which had earned him an official human chaos rating from the Urindorian Council. He was certain that somewhere in the galaxy, a small committee was taking bets on whether he would survive the final phase, or at least leave the planet in one piece. Lysara's long ears twitched sharply, as though they were actively monitoring his thoughts. Jace, focus, she said, her tone calm but edged with the residual irritation he had learned to interpret as affectionate alarm. We are entering the final stage. The conduits of stabilization must synchronize completely. One misstep and... I got it, Jace said, ducking under a projection of swirling quantum particles. No missteps, got it, totally under control. He immediately tripped over his own shadow. Lysara's ears flared, her eyes flickering with an odd mixture of exasperation and something warmer. You humans are terrifyingly optimistic, she muttered. Optimism is my superpower, Jace replied, brushing quantum dust off his jacket. That and accidentally breaking things. They moved together through the stabilization chamber, a lattice of translucent energy conduits, their hum pulsing in rhythm with the embryo inside Lysara. Jace had learned to operate the controls without causing a catastrophic meltdown, mostly by watching Lysara's fluid motions, and then repeating them while pretending he knew what he was doing. He had made one mistake, yes, activating the backup energy field prematurely, which caused a minor, but visually spectacular, light show that had left both of them laughing for 5 minutes straight. Do you ever take anything seriously? Lysara asked, her ears flicking sharply as she adjusted the conduit's alignment. Do you ever stop glowing? Jace countered, because seriously you're putting the sun to shame. Her glare was sharp, but he caught the tiniest twitch of amusement in her eyes. He was learning that Lysara's long ears were not just for hearing. They were expressive as any human smile or scowl, and far more dangerous if provoked. The final step was to synchronize the embryo's energy signature with both the conduit's and Lysara's own biofield. This involved complex gestures, subtle shifts in concentration, and a precarious balance of humor and tension, because if he laughed too hard or panicked, the field could destabilize. Jace took a deep breath, tucked his hands behind his back, and followed her lead. For a moment the chamber pulsed with perfect harmony, the glow surrounding Lysara softening into a gentle, steady light. "You're surprisingly competent," Lysara said, her ears brushing the conduits as she stabilized the final energy pulse. "For a human. Surprisingly lucky," Jace added, muttering as he watched the holographic projection of their unborn child stabilize into a small, twinkling orb. "And apparently very good at panicking without causing a catastrophe." A ripple of energy passed through the room, and the child's projection expanded briefly, then settled into a calm, glowing presence. Lysara's glow shifted, her eyes flickering in a pattern Jace had learned was the alien equivalent of relief. "It is done," she said softly. "The embryo is fully stabilized." Jace let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "We did it," he said, grinning, though he immediately stumbled on the floor again, earning a sharp flick of her ears. "We did it, mostly me not breaking things." Lysara's expression softened. She leaned slightly toward him, her ears settling against the sides of her head in a subtle, almost human gesture of trust. "You have changed," she said, carefully, as if tasting the words. "At first I thought you were entirely reckless, but you adapted. You learned to observe, to understand, even to protect. You've survived everything Erendor could throw at you, and perhaps even grown." Jace blinked, caught off guard. "Grown." "Yes," she said, faintly glowing. "Not physically, though that might have helped given your clumsiness, but in patience, in courage, in empathy. You were impossible to tolerate, yet somehow indispensable." He laughed nervously. "So basically, I'm still a disaster, but a lovable disaster." Her ears twitched in amusement. "Yes, lovable barely." The next days passed in a blur of preparations for the child's arrival. Jace learned to navigate the floating towers of Erendor without tripping, to interpret Lysara's glowing subtle cues, and even to recite some of the ceremonial verses with a surprising lack of catastrophe. They laughed often, sometimes at cosmic-scale jokes, sometimes at his ongoing series of minor disasters. When the child was finally born, it was an astonishing fusion of human and Erendorian traits. A small, luminous being with faintly glowing skin and delicate ears that twitched in perfect synchrony with Lysara's. Jace reached out with trembling hands, and the child reached back, tiny fingers curling around his own. He looked at Lysara, whose ears twitched softly, and she offered a rare, small smile. "We did this," Jace said, voice thick with awe. "We made a family." "Yes," Lysara said, her glow warm, steady. "A family forged in chaos, laughter, and improbability." He laughed softly, unable to stop himself. "Well, if nothing else, I can say I didn't completely break the universe this time." "And that human," Lysara replied, ears flicking in what he was now convinced was affection, "is a minor miracle on its own." For the first time, Jace felt at home among aliens, floating platforms, and quantum stabilization fields. He realized he had grown in ways he could not have imagined. More patient, more aware, more capable of navigating worlds and hearts that were utterly alien. And though the universe remained absurd, chaotic, and occasionally dangerous, he knew that together with Lysara, they could face whatever improbability came next. And somewhere in the soft hum of the city, the child's faint glow pulsed like a tiny star, promising a future that was equal parts ridiculous, extraordinary, and beautiful. Jace grinned. "You know, I think I can get used to this." Lysara's ears twitched, the faintest curve of a smile on her lips. "You'd better." And with that, the improbable, long-eared family settled into their own kind of cosmic harmony, chaos tempered by laughter, and love stretched across the stars.